undeniably artistic and poetic, and in doing so, address the question of whether art can be made more artistic with an agenda in mind. And so the group that I'm going to discuss is Das Racist. Alright, so I guess to start it off, I should probably say why I chose Das Racist and why I'm even doing this Pubspeak in the first place. So I guess the short answer to that is going to sound really cliche and hyperbolic, but Das Racist kind of changed my life. And since it sounds so cliche and hyperbolic, I guess I'll break down the reasons why really quickly. So first, it really changed my point of view and my perspective on social activism. It showed me that there are like two approaches to it. You can be kind of like dry and just try to get the information out and spread awareness, which is a valid way of doing it. Then like the way they do it is kind of through entertainment and art and humor, which is kind of way more fun. And previously, I had only been exposed to the first kind of social activism, and understandably, I was not too enthusiastic about reading treatises on feminism and racism and that sort of thing. I mean, I am now, but it took like some kind of impetus to start it. Secondly, it did introduce me to an entirely new genre of music. Das Racist was kind of like my gateway group into rap. And as you guys probably all know, that's been a pretty formative part of my personality and my life thus far. It has affected the way I talk and the way I see the world and how I listen to people and music and things. And also, I met a lot of really cool new people through Das Racist. The great thing about the internet is that you can meet lots of people who share the same interests as you, and so I now have lots of friends from all over the world who really like Das Racist, and even though I've never seen them in person, and they might actually be pedophiles. I mean, they're still like, they're nice people online. And even upon like arriving in TAS, I feel like Das Racist was a good way for me to get to know some of you guys, and hopefully if you guys are interested after my Pubspeak, will be a good way for me to get to know more of you guys. So, in conclusion, I guess I wouldn't be the same person without them, and if you can imagine a moment in your life, or something in your life, that the absence of which would be completely formative and maybe like life-changing, or even life-shattering, that's kind of my relationship with Das Racist. Okay, so now I'm going to, this is like the really long, boring part, that's like the whole middle, the exposition, whatever. Basically, it'll be a history of Das Racist, and then I'm going to kind of talk about their songs, and how they talk about social activism and how they talk about, or how they're artistic and lyrical and poetic, in a sense, in every sense, because I think they're kind of like geniuses at what they do. They're actually my favorite rap group. Anyway, so a brief history of Das Racist as delivered by Katie Singh to this group of people. So there are 3 people in Das Racist. 2 of them like appear on the recorded tracks, and one of them is Sakai Mandakwa, who I'm not really going to talk about because I don't really know much about him and he wouldn't do justice. Okay, so I'll start off with the Heems, who is one of the rappers. He is a second-generation Indian American. His full name is Himanshu Kumar Suri, and he went to Stuyvesant High School in New York and ended up at Wesleyan University. And that is where he met Cool AD, whose real name is Victor Vasquez. He's half Italian American and half Cuban American. I think, yeah, Cuban American. He went to school in the San Francisco Bay Area, and also ended up at Wesleyan as well. And actually how they met was a pretty auspicious beginning for a social activist rap group. Cool AD was Heems' resident advisor in a Students of Color for Social Justice themed dorm. So it's a pretty good way to start if you're going to be like fighting racism with your raps and stuff. And actually they didn't form the rap group until 4 years after Heems had graduated and had a pretty successful run on Wall Street because he majored in economics. So yeah. Anyway, so basically what I'm trying to say is that these are 2 educated, intelligent kids with a liberal arts background and a heightened cultural sensitivity and awareness that comes from, you know, being educated, intelligent kids in the internet generation. So the first thing that really got them a lot of public exposure would be their single released in 2008, Combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, which I will be playing parts of for you later. I'm sorry, Connor. Which I will be playing parts of later for you guys. And it really was popular with, I guess, a certain demographic on the internet who has kind of like an off-the-wall sense of humor and doesn't mind listening to really repetitive things. I actually think the song is really well constructed, but Connor hated it when I played it. So you can tell me what you think of the discussion, I guess. It got a pretty good critical reception. Death and Taxes magazine actually called it an existential meditation on consumer identity in corporate America, and also said it was both feverishly juvenile and somehow profound. And so while I think those things are a little bit hyperbolic, I can also see where they're coming from, and I'll talk about that a little bit. And so the release of that single really got attention for their next 2 free mixtapes, which are still free on their website, I think, at last check, which were Sit Down Man and Shut Up Dude. It should be Shut Up Dude and Sit Down Man if I go in chronological order. And these were actually received really well by critics. Pitchfork gave Shut Up Dude an 8.7, I think. Or Sit Down Man, oh my god, Sit Down Man an 8.7, and Shut Up Dude just 7.8. It's easy to get that mixed up. Anyway, they received a lot of critical success, and I guess some of those critical things that I put in my paper and wasn't really planning on talking about, but since I put them in my outline, I guess I will. Where Ha 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 JK, a single off of Sit Down Man, was one of Rolling Stone's top 50 singles in 2010. Spin said that Das Racist is one of the top 50 acts to watch at Summer Southwest, which is pretty cool. And then in 2010, MTV said that Das Racist is one of the top 25 best new bands in the world. So that's pretty cool. And then their third album was Relax, and that was their first commercially released one. So you had to pay money to get it, but I didn't really mind because I love that. And it got kind of mixed reviews, I guess. Pitchfork didn't like it that much, but other people did. I'm not really going to talk about more other people things because I feel like I've spent enough time on that. Okay, so now I'm going to get to the fun part that everyone was probably looking forward to, which is actually like playing the music. And so what I was planning on doing was playing a little bit and then talking about it, so I guess I'll just go ahead and start. So this is Rainbow in the Dark, off of,
I'm at the White Castle, I don't see you, girl. Tiny ass hamburgers, tiny ass cheeseburgers, tiny ass chicken sandwiches, it's outlandish, kid. My try to speak to the kid in Spanish, kid, like get the kids. I'm like, where is the bathroom? I kinda gotta piss, where's the bathroom? Ice cream, about toast for. Hey yo, where you get this place from? The Hellhole store? Yeah.
So I guess I kind of played this as an intro. I feel like it's a really good representation of what they do and how their songs are kind of constructed. It's a really like, kind of like free association, sort of like stream of consciousness type of rap, which I really like. And also I guess it does demonstrate a little bit of what I will be showing you later, which is a mix of kind of like highbrow and lowbrow, where you talk about the White Castle for like 20 seconds, and then you switch to like dropping an Ernest Hemingway reference out of nowhere. And so, yeah, that was just an intro. There's nothing really, well, there's like a lot of special things about it. It's a very near and dear to my heart type of song, but that's not really what I want to Okay, so this is combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, and I'm actually going to...
Yes. Yes.
I apologize. Okay, so you get the idea.
Is it just like that for the whole song?
No, it changes a little. Not much. Okay. So, now I'm going to start talking a little bit, I guess, about what Das Racist, I feel like Das Racist really does, which is address some social things, social issues, and also call attention to some of rap and hip-hop's more subversive and dangerous tropes. I think in combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, there are 2 things you can take away from it. The first, well, 3 things. The first being that it's a really catchy, awesome song that I love a lot. The second being, I think that it represents kind of how meaningless and silly some like hip-hop and rap songs have become, and that they take like a format that's pretty, and a sound that's pretty familiar to us, and they like put this like ridiculous sort of stupid, repetitive narrative over it to be like, look at what you guys are listening to, like, look at this trash. And then the third one came up when I was actually talking to Jesse today, and he was like, did you realize that they're talking about being in 2 completely different combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bells on the same street, Jamaica Avenue, which comes up later. And so I feel like that could be kind of a statement on consumerism in America. Thank you. On consumerism in America. and just some things to make you think, I guess. So the next song is going to be Booty in the Air, and if you've ever heard my phone go off, it should be pretty familiar. Anyway. So yeah, I'm just gonna. Okay.
She got her booty in the air and her hands on the ground. She keep her booty in the air and shake it all around. She got her booty in the air like an airplane. She got her booty in the air airplane. She got her booty in the air like her booty was a cloud. And when the booty clap, you know the booty clap loud.
Even a moment to sink in. I really think, okay, moment over. I think that this song is a really good dance track, but while also being a really good dance track, I think it also kind of talks about, or kind of exposes the objectification of women in rap, which might seem like a stretch to a lot of people. Like, a lot of my feminist friends have criticized me for liking it. They're like, how can you like it when literally the whole song is about this guy, like, admiring a girl's butt? And, like, the answer to that, I guess, is that I don't really think it's about that. I think the way that they deliver it and the lines that they use are so like deliberately like comical and clearly meant to be humorous that it's not really about objectifying women at all, so much as using humor to call attention to the fact that that is a thing that happens in rap music. And that brings me to a quote. That was not a very good segue. I was planning something more dramatic, but that brings me to a quote by Humes, and he's talking about like what kind of music Das Racist makes. In a magazine interview, he said, "We're not making music that's instantly appealing. We dabble with non sequiturs, dadaism, repetition. We make dance music while talking about not dancey things," which I think is a pretty good way to like describe a lot of your songs. And that on the outside, they sound like really fun and they're fun to listen to and they're dancey sounding, but they're not really talking about dancey things. And so I'm going to switch now a little bit from talking about Das Racist critique of rap and move to Das Racist critique of society. So I'm going to start that off with this song, Shorty Said, which is also off of their mixtape, Shut Up Dude, and it's also one of my favorite Das Racist songs. And I forgot where I was going to start. Yeah, I'm going to kind of drop you guys in the middle of this one, or towards the end actually, because there's like one passage that I think is really passage, verse, whatever.
A lot to a lot of fools. They said I'm the dude who cuts her roses. She forgets the name, but she supposes it was Moses. What's this? Shorty asked why all the voices from those places have such strange names and faces. I thought that's racist. I thought that's racist. I thought that's racist. I thought that's racist.
Okay. So basically, I feel like what Shorty Said talks about is a lot about stereotyping. Basically, the whole song is about Humes and Glady talking about this girl who says that they resemble all sorts of different things, ranging from Cro-Magnon people and Neanderthals to like Carlos Mencia. And I guess it's kind of calling attention to the fact that we have a tendency to attribute group minority qualities or group like perceived group identities to individuals, which is like is the definition of stereotyping. Like when we say it's a huge part of stereotyping, but that's like actually all of stereotyping. And I think like they establish what they're saying in a funny way again, which is like the core of what Das Racist is all about. Is kind of using humor and not being too serious to make you think seriously. So on that note, I'm going to play another song that I think represents some cultural activism and social activism, which is Fake Patois, which is also off of Shut Up Dude, and I apologize that I'm not playing enough of the song. Okay, so this is Fake Patois, and where do we go?
Yo, got the fake patois. KRS-One did the fake patois. This girl got a fake patois. Even Jay-Z did the fake patois. Now Ray's got the fake patois. But man Snow got the fake patois. You just carry come through with the patois. So you know come through with the fake patois. Patois got the fake patois. Come through with the fake patois.
Okay. So
What's a patois?
I'm going enough.
Dialect.
So big patois is kind of like, yeah, like a Jamaican accent dialect type thing. And basically what I feel like this song is about is like the commercialization and appropriation of a culture, where they talk about all these people who are not Jamaican, using the fake patois to kind of like sell songs or whatever they're trying to sell. And the irony of the song is that they actually do the whole song in like a fake patois, which was probably why you were laughing. And like, I feel like by dropping the part about Sean Bridgemohan, being the first Jamaican in the Kentucky Derby, they're like, well, you don't even like know this Jamaican who went to the Kentucky Derby. Not that all Jamaicans have to know that, but like, if you're going to like, basically what they're saying is that you can't pick and choose parts of a culture and use it to sell things, which is a huge part of what cultural appropriation actually is, and which I think that was a super great way to talk about it. And so to close us off on a really good note, I'm going to play Rapping to You, which is from Sit Down Man. And this is less about the political or social message, though there is like a lot of that that comes in the part that I'm not playing. And if you want, you should listen to the whole song. It's really great. I'm actually going to use this to close it off by talking about what I think makes them artistic and what makes their lyrics awesome. So, here we go.
Nasty. See me face the pages of your favorite Connie Nash publication. They ask me all about my views on relations of races and cut out the radical shit for space that's racist. I'm in outer space reading Frank Percival treatises that kill the common man and the fetuses. Nietzsche told me that the Nazis were the geniuses. Bossie just sounds like it's falafel where my penis is. So with falafel like O'Reilly thought a loofah was. Keeping nature looper up. First I get real smart and then I scoop it up.
I'll stop it there because they already said like the point that I was going to make, which is like a mix of highbrow and lowbrow humor. First they get real smart and then they scoop it up. Get it? Anyway, but I think they do that a lot. Like, you know, they can talk about the White House on one song and all of a sudden they're like, all right, Nietzsche told me that the Gospels were the geniuses and stuff like that. Which is kind of what I think makes their lyrics so fun to listen to, aside from the political agenda, and also perhaps because of it, because a lot of the elasticity of their lyrics comes from their social, cultural, and political agenda when they're speaking. And really, I just wanted to show you guys that they can like rap seriously and like make strong, solid like raps and stuff. And also because it's a really good song, or it's only ended with like a good song. So I guess that like the whole thing about what makes their lyrics special leads me to what I started thinking about after I got into the modernism seminar a little more, and after talking to Will, for my origin of my idea, which is basically the question like, is there a place for an agenda in art, and can art driven by an agenda be more artistic because of the agenda? So I guess a commonly held point of view that I'm sure if you talk to Will about, he will be able to articulate much better than I can, is that art with a purpose, like propaganda or political art, is like less art because it, I guess it opens itself up to less interpretation is one thing, and also just like how can you have art with a motive that doesn't let you kind of have your own thoughts about it? It takes away kind of your freedom to do what you will with it and take away what you will with it. And I guess in this case, I disagree because I feel like without a driving purpose or agenda, Dax Racists wouldn't be able to like sustain the awesomeness of their albums. Essentially, for several reasons, I feel like the agenda and the purpose behind what they're saying is actually what lends their art so much power, because they're just so passionate about it. And I think that driving underlying passion is what makes their lyrics awesome and what makes their songs like cohesive even when they don't seem to be that cohesive. And I guess if we operate, I'm going to skip that part actually. Okay. And I guess their anger about issues is that's what I said, like their anger about what's happening is what makes their lyrics clever and what makes them poetic. Like there's this one line that I didn't put in there, but I think it's in Rapping to You, where they're like, older white women sound very articulate, and then they talk about how they're sick of arguing with white people on the internet and stuff like that. It's like, you have to have that sense of like purpose or anger to write those lines in the first place. And those are like when they really kind of let their anger about what's happening shine through, I feel like that's some of the most powerful stuff that I hear in their songs. And just from like a philosophical point of view, I guess, it makes me question like what are the pieces of art in the first place. And so I came up with like 3. Obviously there are more than 3. The 3 that just came to mind, I guess. And one would be like as an object of public pleasure, like you create it so other people can enjoy it. And in that case, I guess my question is like, well, why can't you take pleasure from art having an agenda? Almost, especially in this case, I feel like the pleasure actually does come from the agenda. Like I enjoy it more because they care about what they're saying. And from an aesthetic approach, I guess, for aesthetic reasons, this is going to sound kind of confusing, but I guess. If the agenda is what creates the aesthetics, almost like if the purpose is what makes it beautiful, then isn't purpose like what's making it art in the first place? Which came out as a question, but was supposed to come out more definitively, like, yeah, that is what makes it art in the first place. And finally, I guess, this is one that we've been grappling a lot with in seminar, so sorry, Darwood, if you could give a bunch of backstory that you're missing out on. But the third one I could come up with was attaining a greater sense of being or oneness with the universe. And in that case, I feel like, can any sense of passion about anything kind of create that oneness? In my opinion, like one of the things that like is a universal sort of like human truth is that we all get passionate about things and that we're all emotional and that we care about stuff. And in that case, I feel like the agenda is like the most effective way to connect people, because even if it's polarizing and even if like someone doesn't agree with what Dax Oasis is saying, you can still kind of connect to it on that level. And I guess even if that seems dated, like even if what they're trying to say seems dated, ultimately I'm not concerned so much about what they're saying as how they're saying it and the passion that they put behind the agenda. And so I'm going to just read my conclusion now and cut it off. I feel like it's a really long time. I'm getting tired. Ultimately, I guess I don't have an overarching answer regarding whether art has more or less value because of its agenda, but I can say definitively that in Dax Oasis' case, it's the former, or definitively open to like your attack after I finish. Part of the reason that I gave this Pubspeak in the first place was to ask what you guys think of that idea of whether art can have more or less value because of its agenda, and whether such a question can ever have a hard and fast answer in the first place, or if it must necessarily be resolved on a case-by-case basis simply by virtue of the nature of art itself. And I closed it with what do you think, so that's what I guess.